Does James Gunn have too much power at DC? I mean, that's one of the questions that have been floating around a bit. You know, I was very, very excited, and I remain very excited that James Gunn and Peter Safran have taken over the reins as the co-CEOs of this brand new DC studio that David Zaslav and Warner Brothers have finally implemented. A lot of fans have been saying for many years that DC deserved to have its own studio, much like Marvel was given its own studio by Disney. And here we're off and running, and the person in charge is James Gunn. But James Gunn is not only the co-CEO, he's also writing the new Superman movie and directing the new Superman movie, making this the first time I can remember in a long time that a studio head was also the writer and director of the studio's movies. Does that give James too much power? And that is the question of today's Mint Mobile Hotline question of the day. Listen, if you guys have a topic or question you'd like us to address either on our podcast or here on our channel, you go ahead and call in that question anytime, 24/7 at 951-268-4259. And once again, today's question is about, hey, does Gunn maybe have a little bit too much power? Check it out.
Hi, John. This is Jim. James Gunn is the CEO as well as the writer and director for the DC Universe. No one's had this much power since George Lucas and the prequels. I was wondering if you thought this could be an issue based on how the prequels turned out and that no one was there to tell George no when he had a kind of a funny idea. Thanks.
All right. Thanks a lot for calling that in. And yeah, listen, I can completely understand the question. Like, let's look at Superman Legacy. There is one person seemingly in total, absolute power control of that film, James Gunn, who is the writer of the film, who is the director of the film, who is the producer of the film, and if that wasn't enough, is also the head of the studio that is making the film. That is a lot of power. Now, one thing I want to correct about the question that came in saying James Gunn is the writer and director of the new DC Universe. That is not true. He is writing and directing Superman. He may write and direct one or two other things, but each individual project under the new DCU will have its own director and its own writer. And yes, from time to time, like in Superman Legacy, James Gunn will step in, but James Gunn is not the writer, the director of all the new DC stuff, but still in a position of impressive power. Now, the caller made the comparison to George Lucas, and it's not a bad comparison. George Lucas, who's of course the creator of Star Wars, wrote Star Wars, directed Star Wars, obviously head of Lucasfilm. But remember though, a couple of big differences. Contrary to popular opinion, most people still don't realize that George Lucas didn't direct Empire Strikes Back, nor did he direct Return of the Jedi. I mean, some people will make the argument that he kind of de facto did, but he was not the director of record of those two films. But the other big difference I want to emphasize here between James Gunn and George Lucas is money. You see, it's fine to be the writer, and it's fine to be the director, it's fine to be the studio head, but there is a level of power that is above all those, being the person that's paying for everything. And James Gunn is not that. George Lucas, especially once you got into the prequels, which you're talking about, George Lucas paid for all that. George Lucas paid for it. And listen, I hate the Star Wars prequels. I think each one of the prequels have some redeeming qualities, but overall I hate the prequels. But still, one of my favorite DVD collections and Blu-ray collections is the DVDs and Blu-rays of the Star Wars prequels, because their behind the scenes making of stuff is amazing. Best ever made. Like, if you are interested in the art of filmmaking or anything like that, watch the special features on those DVDs, because they are just completely fascinating, unbelievable. I love them. But if you watch those, one of the things that you'll see pop up a lot is the fact that nobody could ever say no to George Lucas. Every time George had an idea, and these behind the scenes things, there was never any discussion. There was never any pushback. Everything is great idea, George. George says, I want to do this. There was nobody for any sort of a check and a balance that he kind of gave the leeway to even doubt something he said. So like when he walked into the room where they had all the storyboards up, and this is part of the behind the scenes features, there's all the storyboards up, and there's a storyboard of Jar Jar Binks, and George says, everything depends on Jar Jar. He's talking about the Phantom Menace movie. This all will work. It depends completely on Jar Jar. And nobody in the room could say, well, George, we've been meaning to talk to you about that. Like none of that could ever come up. That is not the kind of power that James Gunn has. Yeah, yes, he's a CEO, but even he has a boss in David Zaslav. And even David Zaslav has a boss in the board of directors. He's got to get his budgets approved. He's got to get all that kind of stuff. So yes, while James Gunn is in a great position, David Zaslav is sitting there above him. David Zaslav is the one who paid for him. David Zaslav is the one who hired him. David Zaslav is the one approving the budgets that get for all the money that's going to go into DC. Ultimately speaking, James Gunn has got somebody that can just look him in the face or pick up the phone and say, no. Now, while Gunn does have an unprecedented amount of power as a writer and a director, being as he's his own studio CEO, I would not put it on the same level as George Lucas. But to one of your other points, it is a little bit concerning from a creative point of view when a filmmaker has untethered power. Because when nobody has, or when a filmmaker has nobody that can say no to them, you do end up getting stuff like the prequels. When you don't have anybody who can step up and say, no, George, you shouldn't do that, or no, James, you shouldn't do that. So is that concerning? A little bit. But at the same time, like I said, I wouldn't compare this to the same scenario as George Lucas because there's a pretty big power gap between the George Lucas power over the prequels and say James Gunn's power over at DC. We want to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. From the gas pump to the grocery store, your utility bills and favorite streaming services, inflation is everywhere. Seriously, make it stop. Thankfully, there's one company out there that's giving you a much needed break. It's Mint Mobile. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know that ever since I switched to Mint Mobile, I've been saving almost 70% a month over my old phone plan. For people looking for extra savings this year, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. By going online only and eliminating the traditional cost of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All of their plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all your existing contacts. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. Question is for you guys. What do you think about that? Can you think of some other creative people in the movie industry who had the sheer amount of power that, say, James Gunn does have over an individual projects, being the writer, the director, the producer, and the studio head all at once? Does it concern you that they have that much power? Would you think there's more of a comparison between the situation James Gunn is in and the situation George Lucas was in as the head of Lucasfilm? Or do you see there being a bit of a disparity there like I do? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks for checking out this video. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, but more importantly, make sure you subscribe to our daily podcast, the John Campea Show podcast, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and your favorite podcasting app of choice.